So I have a reputation for being bad at travel. It's happened before. There's many different videos on my YouTube about it. But I feel like I've gotten a lot better recently. I'm good at being able to book flights properly. And also, a lot of the flying and traveling that I do is now booked through, an external company like Riot or something, book my travel. And I'm fine at being able to get to an airport on time. It's been a long time since I missed a flight. I did miss a connection on the trip to Copenhagen for Masters 2, but it wasn't my fault. And it had cascading ramifications. So I just want to put that out there into the universe to begin with. I'm not the same man that I used to be. I used to be atrocious. I'm not anymore. It's not my fault. Green frog suckling gas. It's not my fault. So I knew that there were going to be delays and stuff, though, because this was when SAS, the Scandinavian Airlines, had strikes going on. And I think actually, SAS was going bankrupt, but British Airways was having strikes at the same time, something like that. So I knew that there'd be delays because I was originally, I think, going to be flying Scandinavian, and then I was changing at Heathrow as well, where all the British Airways staff, operates from. So I knew that stuff was going to go wrong. Get on the flight at Austin and get on fine. I think it was like a little bit delayed, only a tad. But it ended up, by the time we landed, being about an hour delayed once we landed in Heathrow. The journey itself, I slept like a baby the whole way through. I remember texting Beth and saying, this is one of the best flights I've ever been on. It was from Austin to Heathrow, long-ass flight, and there was a baby screaming behind me the whole time. And for whatever reason, the baby screaming just put me straight to sleep. I have the potential fear after that flight that I might be a terrible father, because I think if my children were in any kind of danger, it might just lull me into an absolute coma. But this baby was screaming behind me, and it just white noise, just a white noise, and I just fell asleep for like 9 hours or something. Anyway, wonderful flight, but we landed an hour delayed in Heathrow. And the place that we entered upon landing in Heathrow, I can only describe as an Escherian labyrinth. It combines the Theseus's labyrinth with a Minotaur inside of it, with the Escherian staircases and stuff, where there's no telling where this line, this endless, bottomless pit of humanity that formed a queue in front of us, there was no telling how many people were involved or where it would end. Every corner was a nightmare. It was just a descent into purgatory. You couldn't tell how many people were waiting or how long it would take at all because you can't see the exit. There's a corner and another corner and another corner and another corner, and it looks like there might only be 50 people in the line. And then you turn the corner and you're like, oh, there's 150 people in the line. And then you turn another corner. Oh, there's 350 people in the line. It was a bottomless pit of humans. And we had to exit by 2 p.m. I had a flight, me and Bren, both on this flight. We had to exit by 2 p.m. Golden Boy had already arrived in Heathrow, so he's waiting at the destination, at the finish line. And we have just begun a marathon. At the first big queue, a guy who works for British Airways, or works for the airport at least, was shouting over. He was like, anyone with flights before 2:30 p.m., you got to come over here, move yourself forwards. And me and Brendan look at each other and we're like, listen, we're British. We're not about to queue hop unless someone with authority tells us to queue hop. Those are the unwritten rules. And Golden Boy scolded us later because he said, listen, who gives a fuck about your British sense of reservation? Just bully past people, even if you don't have permission to do it. But I can't do that. I don't know about you guys. I can't do that. I'm too British for that shit. I don't know about the Americans that are listening, but British people just do not like being an inconvenience to others. You don't know if other people in the queue also have a flight that they're late for. I don't want to be rude and muscle my way through. It's not proper. It's not done that way. Anyway, if someone with authority is telling you 2:30 p.m. come on to the front of then that's fine. So, okay, our flight's at 2. You're saying any flights, before 2:30? All right, let's go. We get to the front of that huge queue and we find another queue. Well, okay, this is a bit weird. All right. So we wait for a while and we're like, okay, maybe, if he said 2:30 p.m. come to this queue, then surely they think the size of the queue, you should get there in time. We wait there for a while, and it doesn't seem to be moving very quickly. And there's a lot of people here looking at the watch, looking at the time, looking at my phone. Okay, another person at the front, a woman.
Excuse me, is there anybody with a flight before 2:20 p.m.? 2:20
We're like, oh, shit. We're like, yeah, us, zipped to the front of the queue, dodged another 50 people. And this happened over and over again. I think we must have dodged 4 huge queues, hopping past hundreds of people, just waiting as time continues its relentless march. And Bren and I are stuck in purgatory being judged for our past sins. And every wall is the same painted white. You can't tell whether you're making your way to the front or you're going in concentric spirals or you've just been lost in the back alley in Heathrow. You cannot tell. We finally made it to the point where you can see security at the front. There's a little escalator that goes up to security, and we're like, oh, we've been in purgatory. This is heaven. This staircase, this escalator, this is heaven. And there's a guy there with a little, one of those ropes in front of everyone, and he's letting people through a wave at a time, so that you don't queue on the escalator because that wouldn't work. So anyway, he lets us up, me and Bren, but we get split into different security lines. And I'm thinking, this doesn't look good. This doesn't bode well. Bren's over on the left. I'm over on the right. And I see Bren's line starts moving quite a bit quicker than mine does. And Bren's line keeps moving. And Bren's line keeps moving as if it's a real queue. And I'm looking at my queue and I'm like, I can't even really see who's going through. Are there problems? What's going on? I'm looking at my watch. I've got like 20 minutes to make it through, and this queue is not moving at all. Bren slowly sailing through the other side of it, and Golden Boy, by the way, is waiting at the gate, telling us they started boarding. And I'm getting these messages on my WhatsApp, and I'm seeing Bren go through security. I'm like, oh, that's a problem. So Bren gets through security, meets Golden Boy at the gate, and they both ring me. They ring me, and they're like, hey, where are you? And I'm like, I'm about to go through security. I'm putting my stuff in the tray right now. I can't stay on the phone with you. I'm going to be late because you're calling me. And they're telling me they're trying to keep the flight from setting off. These two are sat there trying to stop the flight from leaving. And one of the women's like, okay, all right, well, if he's just putting his stuff through security, then we can maybe wait for a little while. And apparently there was another woman at security who was like, you got to go downstairs. You've got to go right now and go in and sit on the plane. And they're like, okay, that's very demanding of you. We did what we could. Godspeed, Josh. And Bren and Golden Boy, they got on the flight. As soon as they sat down and put their buckles on, cabin crew, prepare for takeoff, and the fucking flight just leaves instantly. Just trolled and debated to the nth degree while I'm running over to the security. I'm sprinting through Heathrow after being on the phone with them less than 3 minutes ago, and I get to the gate, and the same woman, I can tell it's the same woman because she's got the same explained demeanor about her. She says, sorry, you were just a bit too late, with like a little smile on her face. I'm like, oh, you're a little shit, aren't you? You're a little shit. I'm like, oh, well, thank you for holding it as long as you could. Thanks a lot. I just walked off. I was like, I'm not going to get pissy with anyone. They are short on staff. Okay, I'm just slowly molding. My fucking eyebrows are falling out. I was told by that woman at the gate that my bag was on that plane. The plane that set off without me and went to Copenhagen. I later found out when I arrived in Copenhagen that that's illegal. But it doesn't mean it didn't happen. I don't know what happened to that bag, but I didn't see it again for another 25 days. I hope it had a good holiday without me, because I had a shit holiday without it. I was wearing old clothing for a lot of that trip. So yeah, a little 25-day vacation for the guard from the guard, who, by the way, I had the guard's helmet in that bag, taking up a third of my baggage, was the guard outfit, because we were supposed to do some videos, some sponsored videos at Copenhagen for the guard, which we couldn't do because they lost my bags. Anyway, let me calm down. Let's not mold. Because at the end of the day, I was just stuck in Heathrow. Didn't expect to be there for a while in the UK. But all right, I know the UK. Let's go to Wetherspoons. Why not? I've got a book. I can get some Doom Bar. Doom Bar's fucking awesome. I've never seen it in the US. I really like Doom Bar. And I thought, hey, the last time I ate at Wetherspoons, the food wasn't that bad, was it? Ordered some food. Oh, God, it's dreadful. Oh, God. Oh, Spoon's food is so shite. It's so bad. I don't remember it being that bad. Maybe it was just the airport version, but holy fuck, it's bad. I mean, Wetherspoons, very affordable ales. I'll give it that. But turning every small pub in the UK into a Wetherspoons and removing all personality from these places, not a good thing, actually. Anyway, I'm sat there drinking a Doom Bar, eating some shit chips, and reading the Mistborn series. All's good in the world. All's good. I had already talked to people at the customer service. It took me about an hour of talking to people at customer service to get booked onto another flight. But I figured that's just kind of standard. I wasn't too angry about that or anything. It just takes some time to do that kind of stuff. So I wasn't too bad about it. Had a flight that left at 4 p.m. Wasn't particularly delayed. All good. I got onto the next plane, and the journey was chill. It was chill. It's only a short flight from Heathrow to Copenhagen. What is it, a couple of hours, something like that? Very relaxed. Just coming into land in Copenhagen, and oh my fucking God, this is a bit bumpy as we're coming into land. Jesus Christ, those are some odd noises coming from the landing gear. And we finally come to a rest on the tarmac. We taxi towards the gate, and everyone's relaxed. It was a smooth taxi towards the gate. We're safe in Copenhagen. It's all fine. It's all fine. And then someone comes on the tannoy. Please move your way swiftly to the exit at the front. This is an emergency evacuation. Please leave all baggage and belongings behind. Please move as quickly and calmly as you can to the exit. Thank you. This is an emergency evacuation. And people fucking lost their minds. They were like, it was absurd. It was like a herd of zebra had spotted a lion in the distance making a beeline for them. People are like, fucking limbs are flying all over the place. They don't know what to do with themselves. They've been specifically told not to grab baggage. And the first thing that everyone does is grab their baggage from all over the place. And humans, I learned from this, are terrible in a panic. The first thing that went through my head was, what do you do in a fire drill when you're like at school and stuff? You just shut your mouth and, leave your stuff and just get up and walk out. And I feel like there were about a third of the people that were just doing what was asked, which was that. Everybody else, carnage. Absolute carnage. It reminded me of, when you watch a scary movie, you're watching a horror movie, and people complain that the characters are like too over the top. Right? You're watching a scary movie and someone's reaction to someone chasing them with a knife it's too, oh God, you wouldn't scream like that. You wouldn't panic like that. Come on, I'd be able to, keep my head in a situation like that. Humans are worse. Humans are worse. If they actually put realistic reactions in horror movies, they'd be unwatchable. It'd be unwatchable. Humans are horrendous in situations like that. Absolute scenes. It was scenes. It reminded me, can you imagine like a haunted house kind of scenario? There's a serial killer creeping around and you have to stay quiet in a closet. The people that were on this flight would have been instantly just like, ah! 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 And then you'd just all die. You would all fucking die. The people who were there as well would not leave their baggage alone. Like I said, they just couldn't leave their baggage. These are the same kind of people who would have tried to pack their room up as the Titanic sank. These are the people that, as they realized the Titanic was going down, were fucking throwing another Armani sweatshirt into their bag as the violins were playing on the front deck. They were ready to go down with the ship for their baggage. I don't know what the fuck they had in those bags. Were they all drug mules who knew that the cartel was just going to kill them if they didn't didn't deliver the package? Did they all have state fucking secrets in their carry-on? What was going on? They were all so determined to keep their baggage with them and just get off the plane, towing fucking 5-10 different things around with them. And once we'd eventually got off the plane, people are still panicking. There was a couple of people crying. There wasn't really that much going on, though, apart from just a mess of bad responses to it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there was this old bloke with greying hair who was so excited about everything. He was there with his wife, and he's just walking up and down the part that we got put in the arrivals area, walking up and down the corridor, just telling everybody who would listen, our plane set on fire. Did you see that? Our plane set on fire. Because that's what the emergency was. The plane engine had set on fire. And as we left, we saw fire engines pulling up, and they just rinsed one engine with foam. There was just foam sprayed all over one of the engines. And this guy's walking up and down, and I was just sat there reading my book in the corner, just like waiting for them to let us get back on and get the bags. And the guy walks over and talks to somebody next to me who hadn't been on the flight. And he was like, did you see that? Our plane set on fire. There's billowing flames and smoke. It was absurd. This guy is like, I don't know, 70 or something. It's the most excitement that he's had since his wife gave him a blowjob for their 50th wedding anniversary in 1998. I mean, he was loving it. He was absolutely loving it. But he was also exaggerating the shit out of the situation too, because there wasn't even really any danger as far as I could tell. What had actually happened was, as the flight came in, they'd activated the landing gear. The landing gear had locked up and started spraying hydraulic fluid onto the engine. And what that had done is, it's like when, if you have a pan that's way too hot and you pour oil on it and the oil just smokes all over the place. It had done that, essentially. There was huge amounts of smoke coming from the engine, and so they were worried that a fire was going to break out. So they got the fire engine at the gate, and they sprayed it full of foam, and it was fine. There wasn't any risk of a fire. Well, no, there was a risk of a fire, I should say, but there wasn't any actual fire happening. I suppose if a fire had started, that would be particularly bad, considering that it's an area where there's a lot of fuel. So I suppose there was some element of actual danger involved. But it wasn't, billowing fucking flames and stuff. It was just an exciting, slightly unusual scenario that Brennan Goldenboy had nicely bailed out on, because I was the only one on the flight that got delayed. I got into Copenhagen Airport. Once I got back on the flight, I got my hand luggage off, and people, there was about a third of us went back on to get our luggage. The other people had already taken theirs, like I said. And the staff were saying, thank you for leaving your luggage behind. Thanks, you could have saved a life, I suppose. And I got down to Copenhagen Airport, and I was like, all right, well, I've got one piece of my baggage. Where's the next? Where's the big boy? And as I step through the doors into Copenhagen Airport, scenes like I've never witnessed before. It was a baggage graveyard. There was about 500, probably more than that, just discarded bags all over in piles and piles. Some of which were untagged, some of which said what airport they'd come from. It was like, the scene in The Lion King where Mufasa says to Simba, everything the light touches is our kingdom. And then he looks over at a small area and he's like, what about that bit? And he's like, oh, it's an elephant graveyard, don't go there. It was like if that scene had been reversed, and it's just an elephant graveyard everywhere, and then there's a small patch where things are working properly on the conveyor belt. But that didn't work for me. I think my bag was somewhere in that chaos, though I couldn't find it after about an hour of searching, half an hour of searching, though. I didn't spend too much time. I went up to the counter and I asked them, hey, have you got my baggage? Oh, do you know where it is? And they said, no, we have no trace of it. It's never been logged to come into Copenhagen Airport. I said, it was probably on that previous flight that I took. They said, no, that's illegal. They wouldn't have done that. I said, oh, yeah, because everyone always follows the law. Of course they do. And I, again, didn't see my baggage for another 25 days. It turned up Not in Denmark, actually. It turned up in the UK once I'd gone back to my parents' place. But I knew as soon as I'd seen those hundreds and hundreds of discarded bags everywhere that I wouldn't be seeing the guard for a long, long time. But he's finally made his way back.